Hi Joe.
Hi Bernard, good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your first interview we are doing together. For your interview for Momander, and we're working now since 4 years together. We run so many events together, big ones. So right now we are on the last progressive workshop here in the German-speaking countries. We have 1,500 people, and coincidentally we started 4 years before with 250. We had a big growth together. Thank you for this. And you are changing your seminar concept now for 2018?
Well, the whole reason that I decided to change the format has to do with the progression of information and our students' ability to experience deeper levels. I want our students to be able to retreat from their lives for an entire week, a true retreat. And if they can remove the constant stimulation in their external environment that keeps them connected to their same identity long enough to make substantial changes, I think that when they return back to their lives, they'll be in a different state of mind and body. And so what I've seen in the 19 advanced workshops that we've done up until this point is that we've started seeing people the third and fourth day have significant breakthroughs, either in their health or in their attitude or in their life. And they're really just beyond themselves. And then we have to send them back home. And so I thought if we could extend it a few more days, that we can begin to do the miraculous a little bit more consistently.
So can you give me your best? Your absolute best the entire day. Go a little further than where you normally go into the unknown. That means if you learn something new, you're going to actually just go for it. Yes or no? Yes. All right, I want you to make a deal with the person next to you. You're going to give your absolute best and then some the entire day today. Yes.
But I do think that 2018 is about these extensive week-long events so that people can deepen their understanding, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Wow, so I'm looking forward for Berlin. This is our first 1 week advanced retreat we have together. Mm-hmm. It's in May, and well, happy to run that.
Yes, and we have such an enthusiastic German community of people, or German-speaking community, and I'm so happy that the last advanced workshop that we did in Bonn, 1,550 people, and boy, we had everybody as one mind, you know, just connected, and the energy was amazing, and the healings and the transformations were spectacular, and again, imagine having a group like that together again. And instead of just going for 4 days, going for 6 or 7 days and seeing what type of effects we could create. So I want to do a lot of new things as well, and I want to bring in a lot of community building things as well, and we're pretty excited about it. So by the time May comes around, we should be really good at this.
Right, great.
Yeah.
So we are not only your seminar organizer, we are also your publisher. And I'm very happy that we have your new book. And it's since November in America, Becoming Supernatural, and in Germany it's Werde über natürlich. Can you pronounce it in the right way?
I don't think so.
And could you let us know what means becoming supernatural for you?
Well, this is a book, I think, Bernard, that I've been wanting to write for some time now. And I think science is the language of mysticism, and in my last 3 books, I've gone to extensive measures in referencing a lot of different research. But over the last 4 years, as you know, in our advanced workshops, we've been doing our own scientific measurement. We've made so much scientific history in some of the recordings that we've seen. And the measurements are supernatural. Now, up until this point, we've seen people heal from cancer and diabetes and lupus and MS and hormone conditions and chronic pain and anxiety and depression and even genetic disorders that medical science had no solution for. So, in a sense, that's supernatural. People have had mystical experiences that have transcended their ability to put it into language. They've created new jobs, new relationships, new opportunities in their life, new careers, and that seems to be a consistent theme that's happening more and more because our students are doing the work. What makes all of those things supernatural is quantifying those subjective experiences with objective measurements. So if you have a mystical moment or you have a healing in your body and you say, I'm better and I'm healed, well, the only way we know that for sure is by measuring it. Mm-hmm. So if you were to ask me 3 years ago, would we be seeing the type of measurements that we're seeing today? I'd say, well, I hope for it, but I don't know that we will. And we have been seeing this progression of patterns where the brain is producing high amounts of energy. I mean, significant amounts of energy, greater levels of coherence. We're seeing very significant changes in neuroplasticity. We're seeing our students being able to change their brain states in shorter and shorter amounts of time because they've been practicing it, and regulating their heart rate as well. And so these were things that you would once think that a yogi or a mystic should be able to do. But common people are doing the uncommon, and someone's got to be able to tell that story. And so most of the references and most of the science is really based on the measurements that we've produced. And we now know that you're not hardwired to be a certain way for the rest of your life, and you're not doomed by your genes. That we are marvels of adaptability and change. And we have worked really hard in teaching students how to get beyond themselves.
Be like Gandalf on the bridge. You may not pass ever again. Are you with me? And I'm going to say to you, let this moment define you. And then I'm going to say to you, now, what do you want to believe and perceive about yourself and your life, and how will it feel? Come on, it's time to change your energy and to move into a new state of being. And all I want you to do is remember that belief and bring up the emotion. And the stronger that emotion and the more powerful you feel it, the more you'll pay attention to that belief, and you'll begin to create a long-term memory. Are you with me still?
They'll begin to experience greater levels of energy, greater levels of coherence, because it is a very self-organizing field of information. So when they begin to interact with it and begin to connect with it, we're seeing very significant changes in their biology in shorter and shorter amounts of time, because they're not creating as their body, they're not creating as their identity, they're not creating matter to matter, they're creating as from the field. And so I've written this book to give the world, hopefully, enough evidence that common people can do the uncommon, and that we don't have to rely so much on our outer world to change our inner world. And so I wrote the book to give people first the scientific explanation, and then very easily give them the how-to, to show a case history of someone who has done it, and a story that goes along with it, and then the measurement to show that it's possible. And it's also bridges on that concept of mysticism and what are the latent systems in the brain and body that can become activated for you to have a very transcendental moment. And so I did my best.
Right, and there are a lot of cases within, so that means if you're doing your work, they really change her life, and they get healed, they achieve something they had never thought before. So if they're in the state of being, everything becomes possible for them, I think.
Yeah, and you know, I think it's an amazing time, because it's becoming like the 4-minute mile. You know, we're piercing a veil of consciousness as a community of students doing this work, me included. And once you pierce that limited veil, all of a sudden, like the 4-minute mile, more and more people start to break that mindset. And that's what's happening in this work. And so I hope that that kind of consciousness becomes infectious. I hope that kind of consciousness begins to influence one another. And doing the work then allows us to have the tools to begin to apply them to our lives. And I wanted to have enough meditations in the book, enough practices where people could really get the information and then jump right into the experience.
Dr. Joe, you're talking a lot of time about the unified field and the quantum field. Could you let us know how people could reach the quantum field?
Well, you don't reach it, although that's a good way to explain it. if you think about it, the majority of time people are putting all of their attention on matter. That we've been habituated to pay attention to objects, to things, to bodies, to people, to the place we're in, and to linear time. And where you place your attention is where you place your energy. Throw in the hormones of stress, and now the brain and body become aroused, and now you're really narrowing your focus on the material world, and the very chemicals cause us to become materialists, to define reality with our senses. And so in the quantum model and in the model of physics, reality is both a particle and a wave, right? Matter and energy. So then we can't experience that energy with our senses. We can only experience physical reality with our senses. We experience that quantum with our awareness. So our research over and over again shows that when a person takes their attention off their body, off of the people of their life that they identify with, that becomes their identity, to the things they own, the places they live, the places they go, and time in itself, predicting the future based on the past, and surrender into the present moment. The moment they become nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, and no time, and none of their attention is on anything physical, then they're disinvesting their energy out of this three-dimensional world, and they're falling into the present moment, the eternal present moment. According to the quantum model, all possibilities exist in the present moment. So now they're on the bridge when they become nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, and no time. So they're not going to be preoccupied with their pain. They're not going to be preoccupied with their husband or their wife. They're not going to be preoccupied with what time it is. They've done the work to get to that point. And we've labored really hard over the years and intensely to get people to get beyond themselves. But then, when you begin to pay attention to this unified field without your senses, with your awareness, and begin to experience it, to stay present with it, to become more aware of it, to pay attention to it moment by moment by moment, where you place your attention is where you place your energy, and what you place your attention on expands. So every time you begin to tune into this frequency, and the quantum field is just information and energy, every time you begin to connect with it and you have an experience, it begins to change your brain physically. That's what experience does. And so now you have more circuits in place to experience more of it. And if you keep becoming more connected to it, sooner or later you're going to have a very strong experience with it that's going to cause you to feel more whole and more at one, because the unified field is the governing field of energy that unifies everything material in this world. And you may say, well, that's theory, but many, many people have connected to this intelligent love and this loving intelligence. And when they do, not only do they have a biological upgrade in their body, but they're changed very significantly on a very deep level. And the amount of energy that they experience, the emotion of love, the emotion of gratitude, the emotion of grace, the emotion of freedom is so altering inside of them that they're paying attention with all of their mind on what's causing it, and they begin to connect it deeper to it. And so you only need one or two of those experiences, and then from that moment forward, that's all you really want. Because no drug, no alcohol, no shopping spree, no gambling, no television show, nothing compares to that moment where you connect to it and you realize that it's always been within you, but you've been looking everywhere else for it except within. And so that intelligence is within us and all around us. It's personal and universal, and our students are very passionate, and I do my best to be able also to explain that in the book.
In your book, you're talking about the pineal gland, and you're also offering a pineal gland meditation. What does it mean if you activate your pineal gland?
Well, the pineal gland has always been called the third eye. Mm-hmm. I call it the first eye. And the pineal gland is responsible for picking up visible light, the wavelength of light that comes from the sun. The moment you wake up in the morning and your eye perceives light, it sends a signal to the optic nerve sends a signal to the nucleus in the brain, nucleus in the brain sends a signal to a sympathetic chain that begins to activate the pineal gland to make serotonin. And serotonin then wakes you up in the morning and makes you feel good and gets you going. When there's less light, and as it gets dark, the inhibition of light begins to take the pineal gland and activate it to make a chemical called melatonin. And melatonin makes us sleepy at night, and we dream. And melatonin restores the body, and it's an antioxidant, and it makes us sleepy, and it relaxes us. When the pineal gland becomes activated, and we do a specific breath to pull the mind out of the body and begin to liberate energy that's stored in the body, and when this energy begins to move by the act of doing this breath,
and you begin to inhale and you begin to accelerate the cerebrospinal fluid, the act of accelerating that cerebrospinal fluid begins to create a circular inductance field, and all of a sudden, when enough of that fluid starts to move, all of a sudden, all that energy from these first three centers goes which way? And all of a sudden, you start drawing energy up into the brain, and when you do it properly, there comes a moment where the sympathetic nervous system switches on. And the moment that sympathetic nervous system switches on, all the energy you use to make a baby, all that life force, all the energy you use to digest a meal, all the energy that you use to run from a predator, instead of it being released out, is released up.
And that brainstem opens up, a gate at the brainstem releases, and that energy from the body strikes the pineal gland and the thalamus. There's one on each side. And the thalamus then is like a train station that sends information up to the thinking brain, and all of a sudden the brain goes into a very, very fast brainwave pattern called gamma brainwave patterns. Now the brain is super aroused, but the arousal is coming from within us.
It's aroused because of energy, and the brain goes into ecstasy. It goes into bliss. Are you with me still? Come on. And the moment that energy travels up to those thalamuses, those little junctions, and energy is released up into the neocortex, the pineal gland all of a sudden begins to interact with that energy. Are you with me still? And the moment that energy reaches the pineal gland, something amazing happens. That energy begins to change melatonin into some very powerful derivatives and metabolites. Now, melatonin is already an antioxidant, but the moment this energy strikes the pineal gland upgrades melatonin into two of the most powerful antioxidants known to man: anti-cancer, anti-aging, anti-heart disease, anti-stroke, antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, anti-neurodegenerative.
All of a sudden now the brain is producing the same chemical found in electric eels and profound chemicals that cause us to become very lucid. And now we're having an inner vision. And that inner vision is more real than anything that you've ever experienced in your life. We do a meditation then to be able to activate that center. It's a latent system that once activated then begins to tune into frequencies beyond visible light, faster frequencies. And now the eye is no longer perceiving visible light, but this little antenna in the brain with tiny little crystals in it that begin to pulsate, all of a sudden picks up frequencies beyond visible light. And now the faster the frequency, it gives melatonin a biological upgrade. And now all of a sudden you're not just dreaming, you're really dreaming. You're not just relaxed, you're really relaxed. And all of a sudden the body starts to restore itself and it goes into stasis. And of course one of those experiences, and you can never be the same person again. So there's a meditation that we've done in the advanced workshops where we practice in activating this center, and then we move in to activating it with our awareness. And when people begin to open this center up, that's when they start having those profound moments.
Wow, cool. So you offer also different online courses. I personally love the model of online courses because people can really go deeper in your work and really can inhale your work and repeat it You developed one new online course and it's called Design Your Destiny. Could you explain what it is about?
So the online course is a great way for people to really slowly and steadily digest the content because it's a lot of information. And then, you know, we do some of the things that we've done in the advanced workshop. We allow our participants to create mind movies of their future and work with the kaleidoscope so they can move into trance, and then, you know, they build out their movie of their future, and they pick a song that inspires them, and they go from the kaleidoscope in creating trance, and when you're in trance you're more suggestible to information, and of course the more suggestible you are, the less analytical you are, and you're slowing your brain waves down, and we've measured all of this. And so the kaleidoscope is a tool to open the door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And then when they switch to their mind movie and they watch their mind movie, if the analytical mind is out of the way, they're not going to say, how is this going to happen? It didn't happen last time. I can't afford this. That voice is gone. And they're beginning to, like a tape recorder, tape the whole entire thing subconsciously. And people have really profound experiences in their life because they're watching, instead of a television show that's dramatic or competitive or whatever, they're starring in their own future, and they begin to change their brain and body like that future has already happened. So we've provided the blessing of the energy centers. I do a very, very specific explanation of the breath. There's meditations that people get to do. There's a lot of content, and it seems like everybody's pretty excited about it.
Well, and you really can go deeper with it because you can repeat it, and it's the same for me. If I hear your teachings again and again, I always recognize something new, and I understand it on a new level, and then I understand it again on a new level. So it really makes sense to repeat the courses and also the online courses.
I hope so. They're firing and wiring all.
Firing, wiring, new your brain. Yeah, that's it. So thank you for the interview.
You're welcome.
Let's change some lives for the future, and thank you for all the time we are working together. Really successful. Always have a great time with you.
Thank you so much for hosting me as well.
Sensationell.
Einfach gigantisch.
Einfach nur fantastisch.
Ein ganz klasse Seminar.
Hochinteressant, nichts Esoterisches, einfach ja, mit den Füßen am Boden.
Einfach klasse, super. Geht immer ganz tief und seine Meditationen sind einfach spitze.
Atemberaubend. Genial.
Inspirierend.
Außergewöhnlich gut.
Beeindruckend.
Sehr interessant.